Hi, everybody out there, our podcast followers. A quick message from me, Laura. We believe in covering people and practices that are pulling us together to build a more fair future. And we hear every day from people that programming like this is important to them. As non-commercial, not-for-profit media, we don't spend as much as the other guys, but we don't have as deep pockets either. We rely on you. So what do you say? Are you ready to pitch in to expand the support base for reporting about possibility and love? Or to let the drone of commercial cynicism take over even this space in the airwaves? Please donate now at lauraflanders.org/donate and spread the word. Thanks. Here's this week's show. Hi, I'm Laura, and this is the Laura Flanders Show, a TV and radio program that shines a light on the solutions of tomorrow today. We report on the people and movements driving systemic change from the worlds of politics, arts, and entrepreneurship. Welcome. Could a successful coup happen in the U.S.? The ongoing congressional hearings into the events of January 6th at the Capitol show that only a handful of election officials in several key states stood between Donald Trump and the overturning of the 2020 elections. While the insurrection unfolded, many Americans watched in shock, believing that nothing like this had ever happened in the U.S., that armed mobs simply don't overthrow legally elected governments here. But it has happened more than a century ago. In Wilmington, North Carolina, it did. This special report starts there, on the steps of Wilmington, North Carolina's City Hall, to be exact, as we kick off an investigation into the anti-democracy roots of the January 6th insurrection and why defending democracy requires uprooting white supremacy at the local level.
A healthy democracy requires that people don't just run for office, but feel that they can register and cast a vote without living in fear for their lives. That has never been a sure thing for African Americans in North Carolina. Take this city of Wilmington on the state's southeast coast. In the years after the Civil War, the African American community began to start successful businesses and vote and elect one another into city office. A disgruntled minority of whites decided that they were going to organize to restore white supremacy by force. And that's exactly what they did. Using the media of the time, propaganda, cartoons, and demagogic speeches, as well as the militia force that was called the Red Shirts, kind of like a version of the KKK. They unleashed a massacre in this place in 1898 that led to the banishment of countless African Americans and the overturning of the city government in this building. The story has been buried for more than 100 years, but in the last 20 or so years, more and more people have been learning of the 1898 massacre, and many are struck by the eerie resonances that story has today.
We're actually at 6th and Red Cross at the historical Shaw Funeral Home. Shaw Funeral Home is one of the oldest, still standing, operating Black-owned businesses in the state of North Carolina, founded by the Shaw family.
Cedric Harrison leads Black Heritage Tours.
The community was very much so organized. They had a lot of resources during that time. It was a lot of foundations that was able to lift other people up and put other individuals in positions. During that time, a street like this would be occupied by prominent individuals, business owners, and it was like that village-minded community where everybody kind of looked out for everyone.
The men behind the coup used the media of their day, newspapers and mass rallies, to spread lies about government corruption and false threats of Black violence.
There was a lot of propaganda during that time here in Wilmington. The reason why I really believe that they felt like it was a threat was for two different reasons. One of those reasons was from education. Black males actually were more literate. They outsmarted, they outorganized the white community during that time, and that scared them. What really sparked the coup d'etat actually happening was the thought of Black male and white female interracial couples.
The 1898 massacre and coup reinstated strict segregation and discrimination and imposed new voting tests and rules that suppressed the Black vote for years. Sonia Benetton has led the push for reparations for victims' descendants, a reparations resolution passed in 2014 but is still waiting to become law. She talked with us in front of an empty lot, the site of the town's influential black newspaper, which was burnt to the ground in the coup. There wasn't another for a generation.
Today, we still have not healed. The African-American community was affected economically, socially, politically, and psychologically. And a lot of the things that were imposed in 1898 are here today. For example, they didn't have a public official that was African-American until 70 years later. Today, we still have never had a black mayor, and you can count the number of public officials over that period of time to today on two hands. We have a New Hanover County Board of Education that has no African-Americans on it as well. We don't have any representatives currently in the state house, and historically we've only had two, Senator Jordan and former Representative Sandra Spalding Hughes. During that time we had 60% African American. Today it's less than 20%. Socially, economically, we still have not recovered.
North Carolina NAACP President Deborah Dix Maxwell sees a danger of history repeating itself in the rise of militant groups like those who raided the Capitol.
Talk about who the red shirts were.
They were a group of people, sort of like the Proud Boys we have today, who were sort of militia-minded, that wanted to subvert the progress that was made and wanted to downplay black people within this city.
Not just downplay.
Kill. They wanted to kill, and they did succeed on November the 10th, 1898, of killing scores of people. If you look at the census records of 1890, and then 10 years later, 1900, you will see a dramatic decrease in the African American population of this city.
Starting in 2020, a focal point of Oath Keeper organizing in North Carolina was rural Columbus County in the South.
You don't have to go back 100 years to talk about white supremacy and violence and questionable elections in North Carolina. We're just 50 miles west of Wilmington in Whiteville in Columbus County, a little place, about 6,000 souls right here. Population about 57,000 in the county. Sheriff Jody Green was elected in 2018 in this place, and he went on to acquire $3.8 million in decommissioned military hardware for use right here. Why? We came to Whiteville to find out. And without being here more than 10 minutes, 2 police cars were surrounding us, and the sheriff had passed by. What's going on? We went to talk with some concerned citizens about what they fear and what they're doing. Thank you so much for doing this. Really a pleasure.
Welcome.
Carol Caldwell hosts what are called courageous conversations in her historic family home.
This is what I call the family wall. And this is Granddaddy, Lloyd Best. He was the one who built this house in 1894.
Can you talk about what happened with the election of Jody Green as you understand it?
When he first came into office, this was right after the George Floyd murder. And he put in a request to the county commissioners for $85,000, I think, to purchase military gear, riot gear. And I've lived here all of my life in Whiteville, in Columbus County. There's never been a need for any type of military gear, and never been a need for any type of riot gear. So the question in the black community was, why do we need this? It's not needed.
Jeremy Simmons is a community organizer in Columbus County.
I know Wilmington had a protest too in response to the George Floyd, and you saw a lot of those officers out there, you know, wearing the military grade equipment. So I'm assuming that it was in response to that as well. But still, when you see officers kind of gear up in that manner, I think it's like inappropriate, highly inappropriate.
And it's intimidating.
And it's intimidating, and it's intentionally specific to a specific group. It's targeting a specific group of people. And for us, I mean, for me, it makes me feel unsafe.
How was Jody Green voted into office in the first place? There's ample evidence he wasn't, says former Columbus County Sheriff Lewis Hatcher, a Democrat first elected in 2014 with nearly 80% of the vote in a county where registered Democrats outnumber Republicans 2-1. Hatcher was surprised by the results of the 2018 election, which he lost by just 37 votes. He contested the results.
We went through the course with the Board of Elections here in Columbus County, and it was determined that it was 180, at least 180, some provisional ballots that were not accounted for. So my question was, where are these ballots? Nobody could account for them. And to today, I don't know if anybody has ever accounted for them. But I learned that people were going around collecting absentee ballots, and the absentee ballots, some of them were never showing up at the Board of Elections as they were supposed to. So it was contested. The residency of the current sheriff came up. It was contested. The Board of Elections here, the County Board of Elections, ruled that he didn't live in the county. I went out to this site where the sheriff was supposedly living. It was grown up. There was no evidence of anybody living anywhere on those premises. So it ended up at the State Board of Elections. And of course, the State Board of Elections ruled that he did live in this county.
How did that happen? Sheriff Hatcher isn't sure, but in the course of the investigation, it emerged that Green hired the Red Dome Group to help with his election. That same year, a consultant at Red Dome was indicted in the county right next door. Leslie McCrae Dowless was convicted of ballot tampering, but died before sentencing, and the investigation stopped there. As the January 6th hearings began, many in Columbus County remained concerned.
And I kind of feel like you saw what happened there, and the head person, that is sort of like what's slowly happening and going to happen here.
How so?
We know that Jody Green, it's like this is his country, this is his territory, and what he wants, what he says, goes. And if you try to go against me, there's going to be consequences to pay.
This is the Laura Flanders Show. I'm Laura with a special report from North Carolina on what we're calling the Forgotten Coup, January 6th, and the rural Americans who are defending U.S. democracy. That was Columbus County resident Carol Caldwell sharing her concerns about County Sheriff Jody Green. To see Carol's gorgeous home, built by her great-grandfather after Reconstruction, check out this episode on our YouTube channel, or catch it on over 300 public television stations coast to coast. Go to lauraflanders.org to find out where, and while you're there, sign up for our weekly newsletter. You'll receive information on our upcoming public screenings of this and other shows, and all our web extras, including all our uncut full interviews and my commentaries, which I call the F word. The latest is on the extreme Supremes and how Kavanaugh and his crew seem to have something against bodies they can't control, be they human or governmental. Our special report from North Carolina continues as I try to interview Sheriff Green next, but first here's the David Harness remix of Roots by Ted Patterson Presents Blackbone, courtesy of Black Vinyl Records.
I learned, I've tried to share with people a lot about the history of black people. And when I got myself very aware of the history of black people, I found roots.
Sheriff Green's done little to assuage community concerns about his commitment to the democratic process. In addition to acquiring more military gear than any other county in his part of the state, Green's had nothing critical to say about local oath keepers, even after the U.S. Department of Justice named the group in an early indictment, accusing the North Carolina chapter head of hosting a caravan of armed Florida oath keepers at his home on January 4th on their way to Washington. The indictment further alleges that North Carolina oath keepers rented a hotel room in Virginia where weapons were stored, ready for use inside D.C. if, for example, martial law had been declared. Green denies any association with the group, but his Facebook page once identified him as an Oath Keeper member since 2020. So far, 21 North Carolina residents have been charged in relation to the events of January 6th. Special Forces veteran and Whiteville resident Doug Smith, who led the North Carolina Oath Keeper chapter, denies all association with violence and claims to have broken with the national group now. Still, the presence of so many armed men dedicated to reinforcing police is intimidating, especially given the history of white violence here. If somebody brought you today a list of Oath Keepers and Proud Boys and their names and pointed out that they seem to have the same names as some people that own some influential institutions in this county, would you be surprised?
No,
Because it's always been that way.
Just 2 miles up the road behind me, up a dirt track between high cornfields on property owned by the Columbus County Law Enforcement Officers Association, Jody Green is holding the kickoff event for his re-election campaign as sheriff. It's being hosted by the county Republican Party, and they have absolutely forbidden us access. He won't give us an interview either, although we have asked. But there are young people running for office here, too. Why do they still believe it's worth doing? Well, Marcus Norfleet, who ran recently for county commissioner here, met with us and explained why.
I ran because there wasn't anybody else who was willing to stand up at the time. You know, just to be honest with you. It wasn't necessarily something that I felt I was eager to do, but I felt it was necessary.
Was there a particular incident that really gave you the impetus to run for office?
People were suffering here. I was slowly watching schools get closed down in minority neighborhoods. I became incensed, so to speak, whenever we had the George Floyd killings. And I felt like our current administration took that as an opportunity to flex and buy all kinds of militarized gear and parade them down the streets. And in the age of Trump, to see those kind of things in my community, and to see someone, I think, who might have wanted to be a demi-Trump or something, to bring that kind of energy here unnecessarily. We've never been a violent people in this area. To see that out of all the things we needed in our community, that we would take, that we would put energy, even if not funds, just energy into military-grade weapons in Columbus County was just insane to me. It's just a hostile takeover. It's that take it by force kind of thing that we're seeing happening subtly, you know, maybe not as demonstrative as you saw it in Washington, but there's a subtle and hostile takeover here in Columbus County.
Norfleet didn't win, but back in Carroll's home, organizers from across the state are clear that the key to defending democracy at the national level is building multiracial democracy locally. Keith Rivers is the president of the NAACP in Pasquotank County, where a young black man was killed by sheriff's deputies in 2021.
I guess we have sheriff problems all across the state. Pasquotank County is very similar to the location-wise as it is in here in Columbus County. Pasquotank County sits in the northeastern part of North Carolina. It's about 20 miles from the Virginia line. And on April the 21st of 2021, sheriff's deputies murdered Andrew Brown Jr., a man that was fleeing in a vehicle. He was shot in the back of the head by a high-powered rifle in a school zone, 8:30 in the morning, 9 o'clock in the morning on a Wednesday. One bullet went across the street into an individual's house. Two other deputies fired handguns as he was fleeing. And those deputies get up and go to work every day. And I think it's important to note when it comes to the sheriffs, their power, okay? The sheriff is elected and they write their own policy. When we looked at what it took to remove a sheriff, you had a better chance of trying to remove the governor. You actually have to have local judges and a district attorney and so forth in order to remove a sheriff. The sheriff has armed deputies that he can move and determine what is right and what is wrong with very little consequence. And we saw that.
Serena Sebring heads up Blueprint North Carolina, a coalition comprising pro-democracy groups throughout the state.
We understood when we were all watching on the news as the insurrection was unfolding. We have to wonder, if that's what it looks like in DC, what does it look like at our county board of elections? What does it look like at our polling places? And the answers to those questions are also built on top of a past in which the racism and the white supremacist practices of those institutions in our communities have been a consistent challenge to an inclusive and anti-racist democracy. So I see the insurrection at home, and I hear from our partners the impact of that on local decision making about safety and how can we participate even. How can we participate in a democracy when it's not safe to go vote because there have been coffins placed outside of the polling place to intimidate folks? When our law enforcement, instead of protecting elections, often scares people away from voting and doesn't respond to problems with voting in a way that actually increases participation. And we have to build from the ground up. Because the system itself is old. The system is over 400 years old, as is this crisis in democracy. This crisis is not a new one. It is old as our country, and it is local, not far away.
Mab Segrist is a longtime anti-racist author and researcher based in Durham.
Well, I have to start in 1949, born in Alabama, Tuskegee in 1949, on the cusp of the end of apartheid, basically, in the South and in my state, and born into what I politely call a very conservative family. I had Klan great-grandfather, another great-great-grandfather helped steal an election from a populist insurgency in the 1890s, and I had enough experiences getting glimpses and then the sharp impact of that culture when I was a child to be very determined that I will never go back to it. I will never go back to it. And I recognize enough the markers of what people are trying to go back to be more than alarmed.
Curtis Hill heads up the NAACP chapter in Columbus County.
I know the only way to make these changes is to change the voting, to empower people to go out to the polls and vote, right? I think that's critical for us in this era. But also realizing that gerrymandering and all that kind of stuff is a direct relationship to this white supremacy thing that's growing in our nation.
If the congressional hearings have taught us anything, it's that the fate of U.S. democracy may well be decided in places like these, far away from the public eye.
Political power is created at the polls. And that's one thing I am so proud of our community. We took protesting to the polls. With the help of Blueprint, we were able to organize rallies. And this election, in our city elections, we saw a new mayor. We saw 4 new council persons. And 3 of them were at the head of the protests. So we took protests to the polls, to political power, which in turn will change policy.
I would invite people into these conversations to take risks because you'll get your life. And if you think you can wait it out, you have about 2 years. And then you're going to be in a situation where you're going to need to do it even more and you're going to have less space to organize, so you better do it now.
We've had moments of expanding democracy, expanding the franchise, moving forward in a progressive direction towards this multiracial project that is America. And we've always had sort of backlash, retrenchment. Where do you think we are right now, Curtis?
I would say that we are at a pivotal point in American history right now. Who would think we'd be full circle here doing this fight again, right? This is the soul of America. This is what we're fighting for, is the opportunity for not just for me, but for children, for Keith's daughter and everybody's child to have an opportunity to really enjoy the richness of what America can be, right? What it's written down to be and the expansion of it. It's not just African Americans' rights, it's women's rights, LGBTQ people's rights, it's people with disabilities. I sit here as a person with a disability, my rights are being assaulted. So when you think about it, this is a full assault on everybody's rights in America. And we've got to, and I believe that we have the power as individuals to transform our communities at one person at a time, having real courageous conversations and not just talking about it, but empowering each other and understanding and being a leading voice.
It has to be all of us, and this is a chance for that to be real. This is a chance for those words to mean the same thing in Columbus County and in Pasquotank County as they do in Durham County, or in North Carolina as in the rest of the nation. Like, we cannot leave the South behind.
Back in Wilmington, Deborah Maxwell and her colleagues are alert to the warning signs.
The Proud Boys walked the streets of this park a few months ago. Someone called me and showed me a picture. They've sat at school board meetings. That is the art of intimidation. But we shall not be moved and we shall not be suppressed by them. We are sick and tired of them, like Fannie Lou Hamer said, but we aren't going anywhere.
And Columbus County residents say what happens here needs more attention.
This kind of thing isn't limited to just Columbus County. It's happening all around. And if you don't respond to it in one place, it's a green light for it to happen in others.
Our history is etched into us, whether or not we choose to learn from it. A generation after the Civil War, a powerful white minority used repeated lies about violence and wealth and sex to launch a massacre and a coup. In their actions and their writings, they were explicit that along with black people and their white allies, they sought to kill and banish an idea. The idea that even with our individual histories, Americans could come together and build a better future, the sort of future that was beginning to emerge in Wilmington. Today, a minority still find that idea of a multiracial democracy with good lives for all contentious. But it's the sort of future that a majority are waiting for, and a whole lot of people are working for. And history, with any luck, will tell that story too. From Wilmington, North Carolina, I'm Laura Flanders.
For more information on this special report on the forgotten coup January 6th and the small-town Americans on the local front lines of U.S. democracy, check out our episode reading and research post at patreon.com/The LF Show. That post includes a suggested reading list and links to related episodes to explore. It's also where you will find an invitation to watch the premiere of each week's show with me on our YouTube channel, where we chat in real time. That's Sundays at 11:30 a.m. Eastern. All the details are at patreon.com/The LF Show. And if today's report moved you, and you believe, as we do, that it's important that media keep an eye on local, out-of-the-way places like Whiteville, then please consider becoming a monthly supporter of this program. Every monthly donation gives us a sense of what our resources are month to month and whether we can afford to make a trip to a place like North Carolina. So help us out by pledging whatever is comfortable to you. If everyone listening right now to this podcast became a member, a subscriber, for as little as $3 or $5 or $10 a month, we'd be able to spend even more time in the field, shooting stories like this one. Your support makes it possible for us to continue uplifting the work of community organizers like the ones you heard today. They don't speak to media often. Media rarely come by. And it takes a lot to keep reporting like this coming. We make it available to millions for free on public television, community radio, and as this podcast. If you can help this work, please do. Go to patreon.com/The LF Show to do your part, or go to lauraflanders.org/donate for more options. Laura Flanders Show is produced by yours truly, along with Sabrina Artel, Kizzy Cox, Nat Needham, David Newman, Rory O'Connor, Dominic Marchella, Janette Hernandez, and Jeannie Hopper. Major funding for this program is provided by the Novo, Park, Ellen Poss Family, Hisu Coup Wilson Foundations, the Schumann Media Center, Rising Fund at Tides, Kim Connor and Nick Groombridge, Jane Fonda, and listeners like you. Thanks for listening. Thanks for contributing. Thanks for your ideas. Stay kind. Stay curious. Until the next time, I'm Laura.